women's baseball is just, yeah, like we're making history, but like we've been here already, and we're just finally now being seen.
Yes, women are finally being seen. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Here's the Scoop from NBC News. I'm Yasmin Basugian. So today on the show, we are talking about the Women's Baseball League. It is alive and well. And the OG from the former Women's Baseball League, a 99-year-old player who helped inspire a league of her own throughout the first pitch, that was caught by Kelsie Whitmore, a current star of the Women's Baseball League. And Kelsie is going to join us later on in the show. We are also talking about Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today's Show co-host Savannah Guthrie, who has been missing now for more than 6 months. And those two notes that were released by law enforcement just a few days ago. Tom Winter, our NBC News national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent, is going to join us on that. Up first, though, with so much focus on Iran, we haven't heard a lot from the White House about the situation in Israel and Gaza lately. Then last week, President Trump posted on Truth Social that his Board of Peace had reached an agreement for Hamas to disarm in Gaza. But Hamas officials then responded saying they're only going to disarm if Israel withdraws from Gaza. And now Israel says it's not on board with the deal at all. A spokesperson for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office told NBC News that the version of the deal that was made public, quote, does not reflect Israel's position. So why did President Trump say a deal was reached when neither side agrees to it? And how far apart are Israel and Hamas on Gaza? For this, I want to bring in NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley. Hi, Matt.
Hey.
You and I spoke last week. I know you were skeptical of this deal from the jump. And obviously now we see part of the reason why. Now that we have a response from Israel saying that they've shared their quote unquote concerns, do we know what those concerns are?
Well, I think the concerns are probably going to be just the concerns that I laid out before. There's the concerns that Israel has had the entire time. They will not withdraw, they have consistently said, until Hamas disarms. Hamas has said they will not disarm until Israel withdraws. So it's this chicken and egg conundrum that makes any movement impossible. And this is one of the things, that folks that I was talking to about this, analysts, former negotiators from the Israeli and the American side, they were saying, look, this is consistent with what Trump has done in the past. There's one of the things he did in order to get that October 2025 deal over the line to begin with, which is you make the announcement and you force the parties simply by force of public pressure and humiliation or embarrassment, the potential that they might have to cross the president publicly. You just force them to get on board after you make the announcement. One of the analysts I spoke to called it...
Can you do it with a situation like this? Can you do it with Israel and Gaza? Can you do it with Israel and Hamas?
Well, he did. He did it successfully back in October 2025. And that's why he probably felt like he could do it again. And that's one of the things that when we talk about, with the president now, we see this kind of pattern. We see that, he maybe felt like the Venezuela situation was a success. So maybe he could do the same in Iran. We see him learning in real time. And this might be one of those situations. Unfortunately, in this case, it doesn't seem to have worked. It hasn't necessarily caused a lot of blowback. It's just that, once again, what we're going to be seeing, and we've seen this again with people in the region, where he makes a big announcement and everybody just kind of ignores it and pretends it didn't happen. It's been happening so many times. The president has been the boy who cried peace, the boy who cried opening the Strait of Hormuz, and everybody has ignored it successfully without the president turning on them. So this is that kind of situation again, and especially with the Israelis, Yasmin. Remember, the Israelis, Benjamin Netanyahu used to say that President Trump was the greatest president that Israel has ever had. And now the president has excoriated Benjamin Netanyahu publicly, and so did J.D. Vance. So maybe Netanyahu and the Israelis no longer feel like they have anything to gain by simply climbing on board with whatever capricious whim the president throws out there.
Meanwhile, amidst all this, even though they've kind of been in this ceasefire since fall, the ceasefire seems to be as successful as the one between Iran and the United States, because the Gaza Health Ministry has said that Israeli strikes killed at least 26 people over the weekend. I mean, how active in this time period has the IDF been in Gaza?
Massively active. I mean, we're talking about well more than 1,000 people who have been killed by Israeli strikes ever since that October 2025 deal. So one analyst put it to me quite succinctly. Trump, in that 2025 deal, he ended the war in Gaza, but he didn't end the fighting. He certainly didn't end the killing. He definitely didn't end the suffering. There's still a lot of deprivation, and there's still a huge number, maybe 90% of the population, who are living rough. They don't have homes. They're living in tents. They're living on the beach. They're totally exposed to the elements. So there has been progress in the Gaza Strip. If you call not a state of full-scale war progress, yeah, for sure. The release of the hostages, progress. The allowing in of quite a bit, but not as much foreign aid as many of the activists and advocacy groups in the Gaza Strip want. That is progress. But what it hasn't done is tied up the whole situation. And, again, going back to this point I was making earlier, one of the analysts I spoke with called this the Kevin Costner school of build it and they will come. That if you just make the announcement, everybody's going to jump on board. And like you said, Yasmin, exactly as you described, it might have worked before, but it's not working now. And all the parties involved know that they don't have to do that this time.
What is it going to take for Hamas to budge, for instance, or Netanyahu to budge? And why would one side trust the other? Why would either of them trust the other anyway?
Well, there's this points that were laid out, right, by the Board of Peace, which, by the way, is an almost moribund administrative body. It has no teeth. It has no money, as we know from the Financial Times reporting a couple of months ago. So there's nothing behind it, but they released some bullet points describing the process by which this would happen. But that, again, as with everything that we've seen from the Trump administration, from the Iran MOU to the October 2025 ceasefire, it takes the big prize up front, and then it kicks the rest of the details, the can, down the road. And that means that negotiators have to actually come up with the details, and that is, well, as they say, it's where the devil is.
So let's talk about another situation that doesn't seem to be necessarily bearing out the way the president would like. The president has expressed frustration with Iran on Truth Social today, though saying that talks have started back up. But Iranian officials are saying, no, we're not talking to the United States. We're talking to Oman, which was part of the memorandum of understanding in which Iran would partner with Oman to negotiate management of the Strait of Hormuz. Can you, Matt, help us make sense of why it is the president would say talks have started back up, but Iran clarified by saying it's with Oman?
Again, I want to file this under what I just described, the Kevin Costner school of build it and they will come, But as you noted, Yasmin, that just isn't the case anymore. It might have been the case back earlier on in his term when everybody was grateful to have this new voice who was bursting through the walls and changing the paradigm. Now, unlike before, when President Trump was new in his second term, now they don't have that feeling that maybe this is new. Now it's old. The habits are old. The build it and they will come, that didn't work. And now everybody knows better. And so they're not going to be quite as conciliatory to that really, really ramming it through kind of approach that has just led to constant misunderstandings and failure and, frankly, ignorance or ignoring. This is the thing. President Trump will make these announcements, and instead of people getting up there and saying, no, that's not what we're doing, like what you saw with Hamas and Israel, they just kind of let it slide, let it go.
Matt Bradley, thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin.
So it has been more than 6 months since the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today co-host Savannah Guthrie. The Arizona Sheriff's Department has now released 2 ransom notes that were sent the week after Nancy's abduction from her home near Tucson. The authorities and Savannah's family are asking for the public's help in getting any kind of answers. So I want to bring in NBC News national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter, who's been following this case from the very beginning. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Yasmin.
I want to talk about these 2 ransom notes that were just released. What is in them, and why did they wait till now to release them?
These notes are not 100% linked to this case yet, but there are a number of different things that are contained in both notes that would lead you to believe that there's certainly something that they have to take very seriously and are likely, if not 100% confirmed at this point, to be associated with the case. February 2nd is the time of the first note. February 6th is the time of the second note. And the February 2nd note is quite explicit. It's addressed to Savannah, and it says, "We have your mother." There is a demand for money in it, payable in Bitcoin. A specific U.S. dollar amount is there. And it says that if this dollar amount is paid, that should it be paid, Nancy Guthrie would be returned back to Tucson, which is an interesting choice of words, in a safe location, and then they would be told where to pick it up. You remember at the time that Savannah and her brother and sister released a video saying,
Yes.
hey, we would like us to, could you tell us some more? Tell us where, give us effectively a proof of life is what it's called in the law enforcement community. Way to make sure that this person did, in fact, have Nancy Guthrie. That gets us to our second note where it says, over the course of the past several days, through no fault of your own, your own would be a reference to the Guthrie family, that Nancy Guthrie has died, and that they believed it was because of a heart condition, and that there was nothing that they could do. And then they say, we are sorry. Everybody in law enforcement doesn't think that that's an apology for doing this. It's just an apology for the way that it turned out. And I think ultimately this case has gotten to a point where they are hoping maybe there's something in the way that these notes are written, and they're available on our website. They're available on the Pima County Sheriff's website and on their X feed, that there's something in there, the way that something is written, that somebody will say, aha, that might be a relative of mine. And of course, there's precedent for this. Like, go back and look at the Unabomb case, which turned into the Unabomber. In Ted Kaczynski, his family, once they published, the FBI published his screen.
He wrote those notes.
He wrote notes to his family member. They were typed. They were sent out. And he said he wanted his screed to be published. It was published in the Washington Post. The family read them and said, this is what our relative has been saying for years. And they actually reached out to the FBI through their attorney. And that was the critical lead that broke open the Unabomber case and eventually led to the arrest and successful prosecution of Ted Kaczynski. The difference
if that's the
there.
case, why wouldn't they have, again, it goes back to my first question.
Well,
why not sooner?
You don't put this note out right away to do the example that I cited of the Unabomber case, potentially because the sample size here is very small. There's no ideology that's espoused. There's no belief that's espoused. And certainly in the case of the Unabomber and Ted Kaczynski, the things that he believed in were very much outside of kind of the normal ideology that people have. And it would have been easier for somebody to pick out and say, that's my relative, versus this where we don't have an ideology. We don't have any sort of sayings. We don't have a motive or a reason in any of these notes. So that would make it more difficult for somebody to pick up the phone and say, aha, I recognize that.
So Savannah posted on her social media, she wrote in part, we are begging for help. We need someone to come forward. What should people be looking for in these notes to identify an individual if they wanted to help in some way?
I thought it was great
What stands
finally
out?
that law enforcement issued some examples of that over the weekend. And one of the things that they talked about are people that all of a sudden have some changes in their personal habits, in their lifestyle that seems somewhat different. And that's something that law enforcement experts have been talking about since the beginning. I mean, you can't go through this. Do what this person or persons have done, committed this crime, and not have it impact you. It's obviously impacted the family a lot more because they're the victims of this, but somebody that did this, it would impact them. And so that's what they're hoping people recognize. They're also hoping, and I think the language from Savannah, not only, right after the incident, but more recently, very smart in calling for, allegiances change over time. And maybe somebody you were loyal to, you're not so loyal to anymore. There's $1 million on the table right now as you and I are sitting here. So there's a great opportunity for somebody to come forward. And if you're financially beholden to somebody else, that $1 million is going to go a long way. And that's going to give somebody an opportunity to change their life and come forward.
I just got to ask you, Tom, because I think a lot of people are thinking this, which is it's been 6 months. They have the surveillance video of the individual outside of Nancy Guthrie's home with a face mask on and a backpack on. That surveillance video came out, 2-3 weeks after she had been taken?
Within the first
Give or
10
take.
days. Yep.
They have these notes now. Where did this investigation go so wrong? 6 months in.
Well, I
and
don't know how
nothing.
I know a lot of people have said that, and I'm still waiting to hear what is the fact that tells you the investigation's gone wrong. I mean, you
they
can look at
haven't found
it.
her. They
Well,
don't know who these guys are.
okay, so I'll just play devil's advocate. How somebody planned this quite meticulously. There's no video seen on, there's no car that's seen on any of the video. There's no indication. I mean, they sent some of the best cell phone mapping technology people from the FBI in the country to this. There's no indication this individual had a cell phone on them. They may have been having a walkie-talkie. What was in that backpack? Was that camping gear? Were they camped out for days? Were there multiple people involved? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered for all the evidence they do have, to your point. And so in order for anybody to say that something went wrong, you're going to have to show me the thing that went wrong early on. And I don't think anybody's come forward and said that with any sort of fact of if this had been done, then somebody would be in jail right now. Nobody's reported that. I've not heard that. I think when somebody is arrested here, once there is a resolution to this case, then I think at that point we'll have a much clearer sense of the timeline and the people involved, and that will be a very appropriate time for constructive accountability in this case.
Tom Winter, thank you.
You got it.
So those cheers are for 99-year-old Maybelle Blair. She's thrown out a ceremonial first pitch on opening day of the new Women's Professional Baseball League, which kicked off its inaugural season this weekend. Just 4 teams for now. But Blair played in the first Women's Pro Baseball League, the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, before it was disbanded in the 1950s. So I want to talk to Kelsie Whitmore, who is the captain of the San Francisco Firebells and one of the biggest stars in the league. Hey, Kelsie.
Hey, how are you guys? Thanks for having me on.
It is really cool to have you on. So opening day was Saturday, big day. There was this ceremonial first pitch, which you actually caught. And it was kind of like a historical moment, right? It was a special moment when it came to women's baseball. Tell me about it.
Yeah, no, it was so awesome. I was honestly emotional all day. It didn't hit me until the moment I walked in and I saw Maybelle Blair. Her and I go back. I've known her since I was 15, and her dream was to throw out the first pitch whenever we would ever have another league, when we never knew when. And her and I had talked about that moment. And so being able to finally have it, and the moment I first saw her, I broke down, because it was just tears of joy and like relief, knowing that like we're here, we made it, it's finally happening.
What was her pitch like? Did she land it?
Oh, it was perfect. I didn't even need to move my glove. It was
Wow.
right, exactly where it needed to be. Yeah. Hey, baseball brings you life. It was like she didn't miss the field at all. So it was perfect.
So you have played both softball and baseball in your time. There's actually a new pro softball league as well, right? Athletes Unlimited Softball League started last year. But you're going for baseball, not for softball. Why is that?
I mean, I've been playing baseball since I was 6 years old. Ever since then, I've had always been the only girl on my team, all the way through Little League, high school, and then professional baseball on the women's national team. The only time I switched over to softball was in college, because there were no opportunities for me to play baseball. But I just fell in love with the game at a young age, and then I never fell out of love with it.
You know, the MLB backs AUSL. Do you feel as if there's kind of like a splintering that could feasibly happen because the women's league is not backed by the MLB? Like that splintering could happen where, like, you know, you have some women playing for the softball league, you have some women playing for the baseball league, and so there's not like 100% support behind anything.
It definitely stung a little bit when I saw MLB support the softball league and not, there hasn't been much on the baseball side that they've supported. I don't know, it's kind of ironic, actually, being a female in the game. You don't always have the biggest people supporting you. You don't always have the people supporting you that make sense. And it's we've been dealing it for so long. What's gonna hurt, if we keep going with it? So I think we got it with this league, and honestly, it's been popping off, and we're just keeping that momentum going. We want to show every young girl that she belongs in baseball, and she doesn't have to play softball. She has a career in this game now, and that's our goal. I know that's my mission as a player in this league, to not only keep competing and to do what I can to perform the best that I can with my abilities and my tools, but to also help grow the league and build it and create a pipeline for young girls to be able to play this game.
women's sports is on fire right now, right? You got the WNBA renegotiating their CBA so that players can actually make multiples of what they did before. That's their collective bargaining agreement when I said CBA. The National Women's Soccer League has a collective bargaining agreement into 2030, and some of the top players are signing $1 million contracts. Looking at what you guys are making, $300 to $500 a game, including lodging and meals, you got a battle ahead of you, right? This is an uphill battle. It took 30 years nearly for the WNBA to get to where they are now. If you can, look into the future for me. What do you want to come out of this league? Where do you want women's baseball to go? What do you think will happen, and how quickly do you think it can happen?
The biggest goal for me out of this league is to get people to support women in this game and show up.
To
And
watch,
I want
to
to see
show up.
people show up, and watch. And we have so much history and story.
Yeah.
If anyone were to see the opening ceremonies, it was emotional because there was so much history there. They had young girls that are in the game right now walk to home plate holding a torch, and then they had the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League players that used to play walk down and hold the torch, and now the current players, myself and 3 other players, walk down, and it's just like you don't see that anywhere. And women's baseball is just like we're making history, but like we've been here already. And we're just finally now being seen, and our stories are able to impact so many people just to keep going with something that you love, even when you may get shot down.
Kelsie Whitmore, we wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That is going to do it for us at Here's the Scoop from NBC News. I'm Yasmin Vasugan. We'll be back tomorrow with whatever the day may bring. And if you like what you saw and you heard, press the subscribe button. We'll see you tomorrow.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.